This is Forbidden Speech, the raw truth, with your host, Christina Rivera. In this savvy broadcasting series, we delve into hot topics affecting us all. With cancel culture and big tech censoring any opposing ideas and thoughts outside of mainstream ideology, it has become more important than ever that we tell the raw truth about everything from U.S. world politics, COVID, Christianity, and everything in between. We invite all points of view to come and share their perspective honestly and respectfully. Hi, Blake Harbin. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting's latest series, Forbidden Speech, the Raw Truth. You're the CEO of Houzzle Financial, a mortgage and lending company in the Southeast. And today you're going to help everyone get a spin and understanding on the current financial situation, what's going on. And, I said just before we got started, I'm an accountant, and you're in the finance industry, but not everyone has a handle. What the heck is even interest rates? Let's start there. What is that?
An interest rate is basically what you are charged in order to borrow money. So most of them are done as an annual percentage rate. And so if, for basic terms, let's just say, you got $100,000 and you're borrowing $100,000 and your interest rate is 5%. So that first year alone, you're going to pay $5,000 in interest, not to mention your principal paid out.
Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but everyone I talk to, the number one complaint I hear is, oh my gosh, everything's going up. Gas, food. Oh my gosh, steak, 3 times the amount it was a year ago. What's going in that department? What's going on in that department? I know they're all interconnected, but a lot of people are just frustrated about the price, but not understanding how they interconnect with each other and why things are so crazy right now.
A lot of it is because the government we've been flooded with liquidity or just flooded with money. And so people are spending it, and it doesn't help that, you combine that with the whole supply chain, it kind of goes back to the supply and demand sort of thing. So if we have an abundance of supply, and there's low demand, prices go down. But if we have a super high demand, which is where we are with an uber low supply, because, most of the ships are sitting out in the ports, apparently still waiting to come on through. But that will put you where we are now.
Now the supply chain, we had someone on recently giving a little bit of feedback on that. Is that part of the problem with what happened with lockdown and COVID? That's part of the whole issue of why things are sitting out in bay and whatever?
Yeah, it's kind of in my opinion anyways, it's a combination of that. Because sometimes you have the mandates that they put out that may keep certain workers from going to work. And that's gonna be an ongoing battle. Which is why we generally don't do mandates.
Yeah, absolutely. Now also with the flooding of money, explain that, because some people are like, well, more money in the system's awesome. Why would that be a bad thing, printing money? Explain how when there's more money printed, what does that do to the economy and what's the overall effect going forward?
Well, so that's the thing. So when there is this additional money, and the money came from like the CARES Act and the ongoing additional money that they just keep spending. And, it's kind of like, that's why everyone's so fearful of the whole Build Back Better. Look, everybody wants infrastructure. Everybody wants bridges and roads. And, we're all sick of potholes and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But when there's a right time and there's a wrong time to do it. And right now is not the greatest time to be able to, and to add all the extra programs in there, but to spend all that additional money, because yes, it is great. But if there is a flood of it, then that's where we can run into issues just because there's too much there. And it's kind of like why the same reason, like why the price of luxury goods, for instance, has skyrocketed, because people have it and they want to spend it.
It's interesting. During the whole lockdown, I thought people would be spending less. And in a lot of ways they did. I know for myself, I wasn't going to the movies. You were doing less fun things outside the house. But honestly, people weren't always spending less in that I found there were way more people doing stuff inside the house, like
Mhm.
redecorating, repurposing, building home theaters, stuff like that. Just because, hey, if I got to be locked up in here for forever while I work and live and stay inside, I might as well make it more efficient, better, buy a new office, buy a new entertainment set. So, I mean, in some cases, I think Americans were still spending quite a bit during the whole lockdowns.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, they were. There was a big difference, though, too, and this really hurt our service industry.
Mm.
But because you couldn't travel, because you weren't really greatly going out, to eat all the time. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, we all love our convenience.
Yeah.
There's no argument about who's doing the dishes tonight. So go out, but with that being said, that's definitely is a huge factor that when it comes out, and they're sitting there, and they are working from home, and just as you shared. I mean, when you're sitting around and you're staring at it all day, you're like, I don't really like this that much right now, and I'd like this to be a lot nicer. I'd like to be improved, and and I think Americans found themselves as well with additional money, because they weren't going out, they weren't getting Starbucks 27 times a day, you know,
Yeah,
and
I can relate to that.
trust me, I've seen some of them. I'm like, how do they spend that much money a month at Starbucks? Is that even
Uh-huh.
possible? Like, exactly. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I didn't realize it last year until I sat down and actually did a template on what I'm spending all my fun money on, and coffee. Yeah, it's a big one for me. I really love it. Now, the decision recently by the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates, is that a bad thing? What does that mean going forward for Americans? How will that affect them?
See, here's the tough part about that particular
Mhm.
situation. Generally speaking, in the past, we've had interest rates, we've raised them
Mhm.
in order to slow inflation.
Mhm.
But the problem with that now is you have a growing economy, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, especially after what we endured, and so we need that momentum to continue.
Mhm.
But so the interest rates, although a lot of times they will quell the inflation,
Mhm.
or at least slow it down. It's like I said, it's an entire cascading effect. It can be completely because your interest rates lessen the purchase power. I mean, it's just like why the housing industry is so detrimental to America's economy because it impacts so many facets. Whether you're building, whether you're loaning, all that, then that goes into construction, then that goes into those construction workers, or they're spending their money and buying goods and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
But the problem is what it does is, when you have so much buying power, that's why we've seen, the real estate skyrocket. And as far as the pricing and whatnot goes, I mean, the average home's up like 25% in the last year alone. I mean, that's huge,
It is.
and that's what's going to push things through the roof. And you take your interest rate away, now you have less buying power. You put another point and another. So if you say you take a rate from a 3%, what it was not too long ago, to
Mhm.
now we're starting to see even some into the mid fours. You take that difference away for the average consumer, that's $100,000 in buying power that they no longer have.
Yeah.
But what happens then? Now we're driving rents up. And like I
Mm.
said, that's what I say. It is a cascading effect. It just,
And
and not
food and
not in a
everything
good.
else. Yeah. And I know because the industry I work in, we have products and services. And every year by the labor department, we're able to charge a cost of living increase. And it went from last year 1.3, this year 5.6% increase. That's a
Right.
huge increase. Now, let's say you're paying the bill, your rent is 2,000 a month, add 5.6% on top of that. That's a juicy increase compared to last year's increase of only 1.3. So if you have rent coming up, a new lease, you could, end up paying the 5.6% as per the Department of Labor is allowing people to charge that for labor and services. That's a big increase on your pocket. And if your salary is not going up by that amount, you're going to have to be cutting from your Starbucks.
And now think about this though. Let's take it a step further. So that 5.6, that's what they decided in December. What was the increase?
Mhm.
Now, when we just had the official number come out, that it was 7+%. That's the highest since 1982.
Wow.
So think about that for a minute. So you have that increase, and theoretically your wages have gone up by that 5.6%. And you take it a step further, even think of the folks that are on the fixed incomes, our retirees that are on Social Security. So they got a double whammy this year. They're like 5.6%. This is awesome. But then they got a new increase in Medicare.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait a minute, I'm already check to check, as we know. But now I've got stuff even more expensive, and you're taking more money from me when you were supposed to be giving me some.
Exactly. So I've heard that from people saying, well, it's weird. I've actually gotten a bonus this past, January, but I'm actually paying more in food and rent and whatever. So you're actually, you might be, as you say, have more money in your pocket, but you're paying out more.
Yeah, your buying power is not the same.
Yeah, exactly. Your buying power is not the same. Now, what do Americans have to know to go forward, to make this different? Is there a way to reverse this, change this? What can we do?
Well, a big part of that, I mean, like I said, it's getting, I think a key thing is getting the supply chain running. And then also we've got to get through this, the new Omicron variant, all of that plays a role. And then even when, the government may be paying the people a little bit too much to stay at home, sometimes you got to incentivize them to go to work.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that, because honestly, I remember a nurse back in New York, because we just recently moved to Texas last year. And this nurse said to me, she had been let go right when the whole thing started. And she said, well, I'm cool with that. I said, why were you let go? Don't they need you? And she's like, yeah, I was kind of overstaffed, so I'm staying home. But it's cool. I just got my last paycheck, and then I want to get whatever we're getting from the government. And then they can bring me back right after I get my check from the government. I'm thinking, what? But, never before, when I was younger and, I'd gotten laid off in my 20s, I never thought, let me just stay home to get all my unemployment before I start to look for work. I never had that mindset. But the mindset with a lot of Americans are changing. It's like, why go to work when I can get this juicy, yummy paycheck just sitting on my buns watching Netflix?
Well, right. And that's the thing about it. So, because it wasn't just, let's go back to when they did the stipend. Okay. So your stipend was at least $600 a week for folks that were unemployed, and that's horrible. But let's add that to whatever the state amount was. So in Georgia, for instance, it's around $350 a week. Add that with $600. Now I'm at $950 a week. So I'm making almost $1,000 a week that you don't really pay taxes on. And I mean, that's about equivalent to somebody that looks at incomes all day. That's about equivalent to making about 70,000+ a year if you're looking at before taxes on gross income. So think about that. I can go to work back at my job for $4 or $5, $6 grand a month, work my tail off, or I can get paid the same thing. I'm going to go kayaking today.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, who wouldn't choose that option? But on the overall, you have to think, what is it going to cost me later? Because the one thing I tell friends when I talk to them is like, nothing that is paid out for the government is really from the government. It's from the people who are still working, us, the taxpayers. So ultimately, you're paying for it one way or another by your children's taxes, because it has to come from somewhere. And it's not just coming from today's money. It's coming from generations and generations to come.
Correct.
And future work you're going to do. So it's really never free money. And that's what I really try to drill home to people, that, hey, yeah, I got this juicy paycheck. Woo, let me go get some clothes. It's like, no, that's not a free paycheck. That is not free money. There is no free money.
Right. It's not. And you got to realize, especially if you're falling underneath that category, don't get me wrong. There are some folks that got laid off. And I mean, like even that $1,000 a week, they're like, dude, I was making six figures and I still can't even get back to that. And bear in mind, as we all know, with inflation over the years, six figures is not what it once was.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like, back in the 80s, what if you made 50 grand a year, you were, high up on the hog. But, it's no different with the six figures. But now it's just not the same at all.
Yeah. It isn't. Well, this is great. And you're also, let's tell everyone, you are running for Georgia's 6th congressional district in 2022. Share a little bit about what you're running on, what you hope to accomplish when you get in office. What is your overall take going forward?
Well, a big part of our take is, I want to use the experience that I have gained over my career. And my career has been one of buying companies, starting companies, selling companies. In the beginning, it was even, it was in the auto industry, and they used to send me into new stores to go and fix whatever was broken, and it was, can you turn this around?
Yeah.
So, and that's what my whole career has been, is, problem solving, fixing what's broken, negotiating. It's kind of like, there's so much that goes on within Congress and what takes place. And, the country used to be run from more of a business perspective. So, but the problem is when you're looking at it as other people's money, you're not spending it, they'll spend it a lot more frequently. But when you own businesses and, you've had to, I don't know, sell your car, or personally, I had to sell my truck one time to make payroll to take care of my people. You learn about putting people first. And I think if we start getting back to that, we're going to fix a lot of problems. I want to balance the budget. I mean, and bear in mind, some candidates are like, I want to do that. Yeah, but do you know how? That's the question. I look at it every day. This isn't a challenge for me just because I got to do it all day anyways.
Yeah. And, I used to say what would be really, really awesome is if local and even state and then federal government could put out an itemized, like, I work in an accounting situation, and the companies I work for want to see a reconciliation against the banks or whatever money we're spending in and out. And I would love if state, local, and federal government would put out those numbers every single month. Boom, here's our in and out for this month. We can identify every single thing we're spending, even if you can't tell us, okay, here's some stuff we're doing in the military sector that's kind of confidential. We can't really tell you about that, but at least you give me a number on where that money went. Yeah. Yeah. Instead of the money went somewhere, we don't know where. No. Yeah. Yeah. So this is really important because you're really a fix it up man. Let's go in here and just fix problems instead of talking about them, because it drives me nuts to see, a whole bunch of people, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then they come in, nothing gets done. It's go on.
No, I was just it's kind of interesting because, as I sit here and I listen to all these other candidates and, you start investigating them, just like they do me, and you're trying to learn everything you can about them. And it's like, you'll talk, hey, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'll go get it. I'll go dive into it. But, every battle plan is perfect until that first shot is fired. And so that's what you got to think of. When you're in that quote unquote battlefield, and don't get me wrong, Congress is not a physical battlefield, but it is a huge mental and negotiation and problem solving battlefield. And that you got to understand. So who do you want next to you in that? You want the guy that has your back versus somebody that's, well, I'm trying to figure it out. We already know it's broken. I don't need your learning curve. We need this fixed now. And it's not just budgets. It's not just logistics. And, there's so many other factors that really are playing into this, and so many other issues that are at stake. Even down to school choice for our kids, because that's a whole other issue. And that is a big part of my platform as well, is having that parental choice and being able to play a part in your children's education without having any sort of fear of retribution.
Or being called a terrorist for caring about what your child is being taught, or really not taught, but brainwashed with.
And that's the thing. If we don't fix that problem there, if we don't get back to teaching children how to think versus what to think, it doesn't matter all the issues that you and I are talking about right now, and we get them fixed. In 10 years, we're going to be in even a worse mess because these children don't understand. They never learned.
It's true. I mean, at least when I went to school, it was really highly focused on reading, writing, arithmetic, history, actual history. but so much has changed. Now it's like, let's teach you about narrative and the narrative we want you to think and how we want you to see the world, instead of let's have you experience the world and what's your understanding of it. One of my best teachers in Italian, I used to say, I'm not going to teach you to speak Italian. We're going to go out there, we're going to live it. So he used to take us to Little Italy and walk around to all the store owners, and we'd have to have conversations with them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no. But we wouldn't be able to go home or get a grade that day until we spoke to the store owners in Italian. But it's like throwing you into the fire. It's like, really, we want you to actually experience, live this, be this, so it becomes part of you. And I think if we added more of the experiential learning into education, I mean, the kids would come out with a lot more tools to handle life and not have to feel like they're not equipped to handle what comes their way.
Well, agreed. If you've ever noticed something interesting, at least statistically speaking,
Mhm.
a lot of people, as they get older, they go from more of a progressive side to more of a conservative side, because they find out that, wait a minute, you really have to work hard for this money?
Doesn't just roll that?
I can't just tell my boss to go off
And not get fired?
not get fired. What are you talking about?
I can't just show up when I want.
No.
But what's interesting, because I was talking to my husband about that a couple of weeks ago. I would, in my 20s say I'm a diehard liberal. I voted blue. It's totally the way to go because the blue party cares about poor people. And of course, I want to care about poor people. But as even in my late 20s, I would go to DC. I did a couple of marches. But as I stayed in that blue arena, I realized that nothing was really being done for the poor people. I mean, giving people free pay checks isn't really helping them and giving them the tools to move forward and take care of themselves. And nothing made that more evident to me than a gal who said, I went to, serve, and the Peace Corps, went to a third world country and thought, I'm going to save the day. I'm going to help all these poor people. We're going to feed them, make their lives better. And once I got there with that high and mighty attitude, one of the elders told me, hey, chill out. We know what to do for our tribe. We don't need you to tell us what to do. We just need the tools. And then she said, I was greatly humbled when I realized they know what's needed. We just need to give them the facility so they can do what they have to do.
Well, and that's what we have to get back to. It's the old, what is it? Give a man a fish, feed him for a day.
Yeah.
Teach him how to fish, feed him for a lifetime.
Exactly.
And that starts all the way down in that grade school, high school level. It's just like we've gotten rid of trades completely. And guess what? Not everybody's going to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college, and you can still make $80, $100, $120,000+ a year, all day long, if you have that skill set. So you start putting those things in. I mean, that helps people's value. Then they don't have to get confused. But it's like, wait, I went to college. I got my degree. I can basket weave, and while understanding gender studies underwater.
Yeah, it's not gonna
find a job.
Exactly, because it's not applicable to the real world. I have a gal who worked at Microsoft for many years as an admin, got great pay actually, but hated her work, would not get happy to get up every day. She in her 40s went back to school, became a mechanic, has never been happier. She loves working with her hands, and in her 40s got hired right out of the trade school straight into Delta Airlines and has a job today, super happy. So it's never too late if you want to make that transition.
I will say in addition, in my entire career, one of the things that I have always done is I try to seek people out and give them those opportunities that they may not have had. There's I was having a conversation with a voter, more or less a debate. Of course, it was on social media, and that was against my better judgment. I know better than that, but might have gotten a little bit far in that one. But they were just saying, "Oh, well, we need a common income of $1,000 or a stipend check of $1,000 every month." And I'm like, "No, you don't. I mean, do you want that?" And I actually had this conversation. I said, "Do you want that $1,000 a month?" Or because they were, obviously attacking me and running and whatnot. And I was like,
yeah.
You want that $1,000 a month, or do you want me to teach you to be able to go make $5,000 or $6,000 a month?
Yeah, more than that. Yeah, it's true. You could no cap. Yeah, it's interesting because the gal here who was making a 6-figure income as an admin in Microsoft, not a bad job, pretty cushy. But, also you have to think about, you got the income. Yeah, you made it to a point where you have income, but are you happy with your life? Because it's not just about money. So you want to find something that brings you joy. And if your great gifts are fixing things, which in her case, messing with her hand and fixing things is her great joy, you give back and you're using your gifts and talents. Exactly.
Yeah, money equals time, and time equals happiness. At least that's what I firmly believe.
Yeah, absolutely. We could go on for a long time. This has been awesome, Blake. I'm so grateful you came to discuss this very important topic, because I know for myself and a lot of my friends, we're concerned about the economy, but at least this gives, I find, knowledge is power, and you've given that to our audience. So Blake Harbin, thank you so much for coming to Savvy Broadcasting today.
Oh, I absolutely appreciate it. And, for your listeners, if they would, if they'd like to learn more about me or support us and whatnot, it's because campaigns and change don't come cheap. And, if they just went to blakeharbin.com, that's just BLAKEHAR, B as in boy, IN.com.
That's awesome. And that'll be right below there too, everyone. So you just go on over there, help them out. You can find them on Twitter at Blake Harbin GA as well. And I thank you so much again, Blake, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting.
Thanks so much for having me.
You betcha. Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more Forbidden Speech or Savvy episodes, visit SavvyBroadcasting.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.